Tim Hall was just an ordinary rideshare driver on his routine evening shift, or so he thought. Under the shimmering desert stars, a single plea for help would send his life careening into an extraordinary discovery. Hi everyone, brace yourselves for an uplifting tale of courage and mystery. Welcome to Inspiring Stories. Tim Hall believed in the quiet comfort of his nighttime routine. Every evening, right at 8, he started his rideshare app, cruised the dusty desert roads, and waited for the few passengers who might need a lift after sundown. Life moved slowly in this region. Local folks preferred to drive their own trucks, and tourists mostly came during daylight. Still, Tim found peace in that vast emptiness, the skies brimming with stars, and the rhythm of wheels on asphalt. One night, after two quick Foresa couple going back to their RV and a student heading to a desert hostel, Tim lingered near an abandoned gas station sign, its neon long gone. Then his phone pinged, a request far beyond his usual pickup range, close to a spot on the map labeled only Coyote Pass. He paused, uncertain who would be waiting in such a place at this hour. But a job was a job. He guided his sedan onto the highway, where the only light came from his headlights and a faint silver glow cast by the moon. When Tim arrived, he found a lone figure by the roadside, a woman named Serena Brooks. She wore a dust-covered hoodie, her posture guarded, as though she'd been waiting in tense silence. Her handshake was quick, her words minimal as she slid into the back seat with a single black backpack. He confirmed the drop-off location, a research facility near the desert's southern edge. He had driven scientists there in the past, usually in the daytime, but never picked anyone up this far out at night. As he steered back onto the road, he tried polite questions. Was she new here, traveling alone, etc.? She offered clipped replies, staring out the window with restless eyes. Eventually, he let the silence settle, content to focus on the calming darkness of the highway. About 20 minutes later, Tim glanced in the rearview mirror and noticed Serena looked unwell. Her face was drained of color, lips parted as if struggling to breathe. Alarmed, he eased onto the shoulder, dust billowing around the car. He turned to find her slumped against the seat, knuckles white. "Hey," he said, voice tight with worry. "You all right back there?" She didn't answer. He jumped out, opened the back door, and gently shook her shoulder. Barely conscious, she mumbled something about bag and medication. Tim rummaged through her backpack, discovering a locked metal case and, thankfully, a small prescription vial. He carefully helped her swallow a dose. Gradually, the lines of strain eased from her face, though her breathing remained shallow for a while. During this brief crisis, Tim also noticed a strange device in her Baga compact, high-tech gadget with an antenna and blinking lights. It looked like specialized equipment, yet he didn't dare pry. Once she caught her breath, Serena met his gaze with a mixture of gratitude and caution. "Thank you," she whispered. "I have a chronic condition. Stress can trigger it. Guess I overdid it today." "Should I call an ambulance?" Tim asked. She shook her head fiercely. "Number I need to get to that facility." "It's important." When she regained a bit of strength, she asked him to continue. Tim pulled back onto the road, driving slower this time. Occasional glances in the mirror showed her regaining color, though still pale. He thought about pressing her on the device in her bag, but decided against it. She seemed weighed down by worries enough already. After another half hour, the desert terrain began to shift, becoming hillier and craggy. The facility was near, but just as the chain-link fences came into view, Serena straightened in her seat. Her voice, though shaky, carried urgency. "Please stop here." Tim brought the car to a halt beside a bend in the road. She stepped out unsteadily, scanning the starlit horizon. Tim followed, unsure if she was sick again. "The real reason I'm here," she said, holding her backpack protectively, "is to investigate a potential groundwater contamination near a wildlife refuge. If I'm right, thousands of animals and people could be at risk. I have to take readings before heading to the research facility." She paused, evidently weighing whether to share more. "I work for an environmental agency. There's something in this desert's water supply that could devastate local habitats. We need proof to force an intervention." Tim didn't hesitate. "Show me where." She gave him a tired but grateful glance and directed him to a narrow dirt track that branched off from the main road. They rattled over rocks and potholes until reaching a gate marked "Restricted." Serena produced a small key, unlocking the chain, and they drove into a clearing. Under thin moonlight, she assembled the device from her backpack, some sort of sensor unit on a tripod. Handing Tim a handheld meter, she asked him to read off numbers as they appeared. The red bars climbed alarmingly high. "Is it really that bad?" Tim asked, concern evident in his voice. She nodded. "If these toxins spread to the main aquifer, it could affect a massive region." With shaky hands, Serena tried emailing data to her team, but her phone struggled for signal. "We'll have to reach the facility," she said, face grim. "They have secure comms there. This is urgent." Tim helped her pack the sensor, noticing how she needed to lean on the car for balance. "You good?" he asked softly. Serena inhaled and forced a small smile. "I'll manage." They returned to the highway and made it to the guarded entrance of the research compound around 3 a.m. Floodlights cut across the desert, revealing fences and several low buildings. A startled guard inspected Serena's ID, but let them in once she mentioned the significance of her data. Inside, everything looked brightly clinical. Fluorescent lights, white-tiled corridors. A pair of lab techs, initially confused by this late arrival, ushered them toward a computer room. Serena plugged in her device, transferring the contamination readings. Tim hovered near the door, feeling like an outsider in a world of urgent whispering and flickering screens. Her data provoked immediate alarm. Phone calls, hushed consultations, references to an official report. Tim overheard bits of frantic conversation about a full-scale threat and emergency response. Exhausted, Serena clutched at a desk for support. Tim rushed over, ready to catch her if she toppled. A staffer offered her a chair, then whisked her away to a side room to rest. Left behind, Tim considered driving home, but his conscience wouldn't let him leave her stranded. Instead, he slumped against a wall, arms folded, waiting. Not long after, a scientist in a lab coat approached. "You're the one who brought her, right?" "Thank you," the man said. "We've suspected a crisis in the aquifer, but we didn't realize the severity. Your passenger's data confirms we're at a tipping point." Tim absorbed the gravity of that statement. For years, he'd roamed these roads with no idea that beneath the desert's calm surface, toxins were spreading. He remembered nights glimpsing coyotes darting across the asphalt, hawks silhouetted against sunrise. Now he imagined them drinking water tainted by chemicals, entire habitats at risk. Soon, Serena reappeared, looking frail but determined. Dark circles rimmed her eyes, yet she gave Tim a faint smile. "Thanks for sticking around," she said. "I didn't expect anyone to care this much." He shrugged, trying to downplay it. "Wanted to make sure you were okay. You needed help." In a conference room, she presented a short briefing to staff and placed an urgent call to local officials. Tim observed from the back, feeling both pride and worry. She was pushing herself, powering through raw determination. By sunrise, a plan began to form. They'd gather more data from multiple sites, file for an emergency injunction, and demand immediate containment measures. That morning, staffers secured Serena a makeshift place to sleep. Tim, too wired to leave, found a corner of the lounge to doze in. A few hours later, she found him, hair disheveled, but spirit unbroken. "I should be out in the field soon," she said. "I can't coordinate this from behind a desk. You wouldn't happen to be free for some extra driving, would you?" He studied her expression. "A rideshare driver turned field assistant?" He smiled. "Yeah, I'm in. I know these roads better than most." Over the next week, Tim ferried Serena and other researchers across the desert, hidden canyons, ephemeral streams, dusty back roads. They installed sampling equipment, tested water from remote springs, documented suspicious discharge points where a local corporation might be dumping waste. On particularly rough terrain, Tim had to get out and walk, guiding the wheels carefully over rocky passes. At times, Serena's condition flared, forcing breaks to let her catch her breath and take medication. He watched her resilience with admiration, seeing that her sense of purpose eclipsed any discomfort. One evening at twilight, the sky streaked purple and gold over looming rock formations. They parked on a ridge to set up equipment that would measure water seeping from an underground spring. As the final test concluded, Serena's portable meter flashed the same ominous readings. She sank against the car, pressing her eyes shut. "So it's not contained yet," Tim remarked. She shook her head, shoulders trembling. "But at least now we can prove it to the agencies that matter." After transmitting fresh data via the research facility's secure line, Serena reported that officials were beginning to respond. Local environmental groups joined the effort, volunteer rangers arrived, and eventually, official teams were dispatched to contain leaks and start cleanup. News outlets picked up the story, cautioning that the region had narrowly avoided ecological disaster. Throughout it all, Tim stayed at Serena's side, driving at odd hours and bridging the gap between the dusty highways and the lab. He watched the desert transform before his eyes, from a backdrop of silent nights to a living tapestry of wildlife, delicate flora, and precarious water systems. Where once he drove aimlessly, content with routine, he now found himself part of something bigger. Weeks passed. Early interventions showed promising results. The contamination levels began leveling off, though significant cleanup remained. Experts installed filtration systems, quarantined certain zones, and hammered out regulations to block harmful dumping. On what felt like a pivotal day, the team at the research facility held a small ceremony. They had made enough progress to believe a crisis had been averted. In the courtyard of that facility, Tim sipped from a glass of iced tea, listening to celebratory chatter. Serena approached, wearing a rare smile. "It's not over," she told him, "but we've dodged the worst." "Thanks to you." He raised a hand to cut her off. "I just drove. You're the one who saved half the desert." She shook her head. "You don't understand. Without you, I might have collapsed on that highway, never reached the base in time. I needed a friend out here, and you showed up." Tim felt a surge of warmth at the word friend. He realized how much he respected her courage. "I guess we helped each other," he said, smiling back. That night, at sunset, Tim drove her to the same lonely stretch of road where he had first picked her up. Shadows lengthened across the dusty shoulders. With her backpack slung over one shoulder, she turned, studying him for a moment. "I'll have to move on soon," she said softly. "There are other places that need investigating, but I'll be back. This desert matters too much." Tim nodded, trying to hide a lump in his throat. Though they had known each other only a short time, her presence felt woven into these roads and open skies. "I'm still here," he said, "and I'm not about to unsee all this. If you need me, you know where to find me." A hint of relief brightened her features. "Take care of this land for me," she whispered, stepping away. "And thank you for everything." Tim watched her disappear down the dusty path, footprints fading into the twilight. For a moment, he felt a pang of loss, but it was tempered by quiet pride. He turned toward his car, remembering the sense of emptiness he used to feel on these highways, how he had drifted through nights without purpose. Now, everything had changed. In the weeks that followed, Tim balanced his usual fares with ongoing calls from the research station. Sometimes they needed water samples from a distant well. Other times, they requested that he relay data equipment to a new volunteer group. He became a sort of unofficial environmental liaison still, the same man behind the wheel, but with a deeper sense of responsibility. Months later, as Tim cruised under a canopy of stars, he couldn't help reflecting on how a single chance encounter had led him here. The roads felt alive now. He noticed hawks perched on telephone poles, heard the rustle of desert hares in the brush. He understood that the land's silence was not emptiness. It was a quiet resilience, one that needed people who cared enough to protect it. He switched off his engine on a deserted stretch, gazing at the vastness around him. An old memory of Serena's determined eyes made him smile. "We might have saved something sacred," he murmured to himself. And he realized, in turn, that the desert had saved him, given him a reason to go beyond mere routine, to find meaning in each winding mile. As he pulled back onto the highway, Tim felt certain that wherever the future led, he'd stay connected to this landscape, to the cause Serena had championed, and to the vow he had made when he first pulled over to help a stranger in need. Sometimes, a faint cry for help can open a door to a new life. Tim Hall was living proof that the simplest decisions, like stopping on a dusty road, could set the stage for extraordinary possibilities.